So today for the interview video, we're here with Carl from GAFR. And Carl, if you would like to introduce yourself, you can do that right now.
Sure. So I'm Carl. I play in GAFR, which is a one-man black metal influenced thing. It's very, it's a little bit more upbeat than a lot of black metal. I call it heroic black metal, which is, some might think a bit laughable because the black in black metal is supposed to sound evil, I suppose. But I'm trying to go for something a bit more, I guess, power metal influence with its lyrics and its feel. A bit more classic metal influence, like bands like Manila Road and stuff. But you know, it keeps changing, so it's quite exciting, and it's good to be able to focus on music a bit more now with everything happening. So it's keeping me sane.
Okay. So my first question is, what are some of the other hobbies that you have outside of music that you enjoy? Maybe give us a little bit of insight on. I know you're big into photography and stuff like that, but I was wondering if you had any other hobbies.
I mean, it's interesting that you say about photography. It's for Instagram, that's literally the extent of my photography, but I do like taking the pictures for it. I do often go out on walks. I'm lucky enough to live near a place called the Peak District, which is in the northwest of the UK. I do live in the city centre in Manchester, but it's not too far to get there. So I do go on walks a lot and just take in nature and stuff, and always take a few pictures when I go out. But other than that, I kind of grew up being like an actor as well. I did acting training at university, and that was like the main drive for a large part of my life. And then I slowly started to fall out of love with it a little bit. And while I was at uni, I got in a band with my friends, and because music had been there in my life longer, it kind of just eventually took over, and now it's the main interest really. But I still do bits and pieces of acting from time to time, like audio plays and stuff, and I'm getting quite interested in voiceover work and that. So
That's cool. So one of the things I like to ask everyone that comes on my little interview thing is, what's the best concert you've ever been to?
Yeah, that's a tough one. There's a lot of different bands that I've seen live that are all great for different reasons, but recent memory, the one that really clearly sticks out was Iron Maiden on their Legacy of the Beast tour. Sadly enough, that was the first time I'd actually seen Maiden. I saw them in Manchester, and that was just an incredible show, just in terms of sheer like spectacle. And not to sound offensive to them, but they're not young guys anymore, and at their age it was just great to see them just at the peak of their game, and just so much energy and stage presence, and the sort of sets and the stage show was all just incredible. So I'd probably say Iron Maiden. That sticks out the most.
It's nice. So starting on music questions, what got you into music specifically, and why did you start GAFR?
Music's, like I said, has sort of been something I've always been interested in. I was actually in a brass band first when I was a little kid. So I was in like that in primary school when I was dead young. And then I grew up and became an edgy teenager and got a guitar at 13, and then just didn't look back. I used to be into a lot of different sort of more just alt rock and punk rock influenced bands when I was younger. And then just slowly as I got older, I got interested in more just weirder stuff. Like lots of post-punk bands. I like a lot of the 80s alt rock bands, like Pixies and The Cure and stuff like that. And I'm from Manchester, so I love a lot of Manchester bands like the Smiths and the Stone Roses and Joy Division and New Order. And then like about 4 or 5 years ago, like I flirted with metal a bit when I was growing up, but then about 4 or 5 years ago, I just kind of got a bit sick of listening to stranger and stranger stuff. And then I think it was either Run to the Hills or Number of the Beast came on my iPod when I was walking to work. And I was just like, yeah, this is what enjoying music feels like. And I'd forgotten what that felt like. It was just like so innocently just all out and, you know, quite bombastic and so much bravado, but just like they just loved what they were doing. And you can really just hear that in it. And then that just sent me down the rabbit hole of metal again. And I've just been trying to ingest as much as I could for the last sort of 4 or 5 years, just going into all the genres and subgenres and all the band's main albums and stuff. And I was just drawn more to black metal because I hadn't really delved into it properly yet. So that the imagery of that and the sort of rougher sound of that was something I was drawn to. And then finding bands like Burzum, it's kind of like predictable to say. It's like, oh, if I listen to Burzum, then I do a one-man black metal thing because everyone tends to sort of do that. But that was like the light bulb moment for me, like, oh, I can just do it myself. That's quite convenient. And then finding albums like Transylvanian Hunger and stuff, and the lo-fi nature of that was quite like freeing and a light bulb moment as well, where you just think, oh, I can just record something and have it sound crap, but if the atmosphere is there, it can sound all right. And then that was it, basically. I was just sort of trying to go from there and make some music and see what happened to it. And it's just been refining it and what it's supposed to be for me over the last couple of years, because it used to be a bit just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, but now there's a bit more of a clear like direction what I go with thematically, at least.
Yeah, your music changes quite a bit between albums. I find that quite interesting because I like the changes in it. But I
Oh, cool.
noticed your older music does have a lot of those rock influences thrown in it, like some of the
Right.
guitar solos and stuff. And I find that kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
that's cool.
So my next question kind of goes into this one. Where do you draw your inspiration for your music? Is it like nature? Is it stories? Or what do you specifically use to get inspiration for your music?
It's all over the place, really. I've said like I go on walks and stuff, so especially a lot of the recent things I've been writing have definitely been inspired by just getting in touch with that side again, rather than just being aggressive all the time. So I'd say nature, definitely. I've always felt quite at peace just being out in the countryside, just away from cities and places. But other than that, I've just been reading loads, especially over the last year. And the last sort of 4 years, I've been reading like the Norse sagas, the Snorri Sturluson Eddas and stuff like that. Um, and just classic sort of mythology books. And Neil Gaiman put out a great Norse myths book a little while back. It's probably about 2 years ago now. And so the specific, especially this trilogy, the gods thing that I'm doing now, is mainly inspired by those myths and trying to find the links between the Anglo-Saxon variants of that as well, because that was like a big thing for me, like realizing that we share this sort of common mythology across like Scandinavia and, you know, England and Germany and stuff. So it was about finding sort of roots, I guess.
Would you say that this album specifically has like Bathory influences on it? Because from what I hear, it seems like it might have some influence to some of the later Bathory albums.
Definitely, yeah. I only recently, sadly enough, got around to listening to the two Nordland albums, which are incredible. I've
Yeah.
always really enjoyed Hammerheart and you know, Twilight of the Gods and stuff, but the Nordland ones are just incredible. So yeah, there's definitely a Bathory influence. That finding Bathory at the early stages of getting into black metal was another like, oh my god, this is amazing. Like you can make this harsh music, but it's got all these like pagan themes in it and stuff. So absolutely Bathory. And local bands as well, because I'm from Manchester. There's a band called Winterfilleth, which are quite big now, and they're a big influence in what I write. I love how they sort of entwine history and stories and things into their music. And like Woden's Throne, I think, another good one. But definitely Bathory, the more Viking stuff.
Um, so I was wondering about your songwriting process and how you go about writing your music since you're a one-man band. And I was kind of interested to hear from you how you follow through with that process and what maybe your steps are in writing your music.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'm really unorganized, so it's quite random a lot of the time. Usually, I'll have a riff or like a musical idea first, or a theme. I'll rarely have like lyrics first. I'm definitely more of a sound person. I think my brain's wired more to be like I learn from sounds and stuff rather than images. Um, so definitely like a riff will come first, or I'll have a general theme like this trilogy thing was okay. I'll do one song for three different gods and write music around that, and then maybe once I've got the song written out musically, I'll try and fit lyrics into that. But yeah, usually it starts with either a riff or a general vibe or a theme before I get like everything filled out. And then I'll just sort of sit down and just record it. Sometimes I carry on writing it as I'm recording it. I'm not lazy with it. So I'll have a half finished song. I'll just start recording it and then just see what happens as it goes on. Maybe
Yeah,
sometimes that's obvious because it's not as good.
yeah, that makes sense. So I had a question about some of the instruments you were using on some of your music. So I hear a lot of I'd say like an electronic instrument in the background of some kind, and I was wondering
Okay.
specifically what that was because it sounded a little bit like a synth, maybe a piano, but I wasn't completely sure on what you were using on that.
Right. Um, is it the little boopy sound in Two's hand?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically just a harp and one of the synth instruments I've got on my like software, and I've just distorted it to the craziest level and then like doubled it and echoed it. So it's
That's
actually just a
cool.
harp. If I took all the effects off it, it would just sound like a little Casio keyboard harp sound. But it just sounded nice when I stuck lots of distortion on it and echoes and stuff. So
That's pretty
that's
cool.
that.
And then I was gonna ask, so is all your music written in standard tuning, or do you ever like try and experiment with different tunings?
Yeah, mostly. For the I think all of the stuff I've done up to now has been in standard tuning, if not in like drop D occasionally. But the song I'm working on at the moment, which is the last song in this trilogy called Thunor's Arm, is in drop C, so that's a little bit lower. But yeah, mostly it's just been normal tuning. I've just kind of like to sit down with the guitar and just start playing straight away because I'm quite impatient when it comes to just writing something straight off. But it's definitely something I'm more interested in doing in the future, tuning wise. But yeah, the next one will be a bit deeper, so it's supposed to be more like pounding and like a sort of marching sound to it. So I wanted a big like guttural, deep sound.
Uh, can't wait to hear it. So I was gonna ask, this goes into kind of what you just said, but do you have any new plans like for music after you're done with this trilogy of the gods that you want to
Sure.
share? And if not, I completely understand, but just wondering if you had any plans for anything after that.
Yeah, sure. I think the next I was going to actually do an album straight after I did the Roots Go Deep EP, and then I had this trilogy thing that I figured we best suited to do it as like 3 songs and then as an EP. But definitely next will be an album. It's just a matter of whether or not, like how long that takes to record and when it'll happen. But the next step's definitely an album. I have a concept in mind for it, and it might be like a little different to the mythology angle I've been going down recently, like at least thematically. And it's inspired by this painting that I found. So I guess if I can find out if this painting is public domain and I can actually use it, then that'll be what the album's about. But if I can't get the painting, then it might be something else. But either way, the next step's definitely an album, and I'm hoping to get this trilogy out before spring. So by the end of the year, I'm hoping to at least either have that out or be right in the middle of doing that. So yeah, an album.
Okay, and then one of the other things was, are you planning on ever doing any physical releases of music, or would that be something you wanted to do? Also, would you want to do like any releases, say like patches, merch, t-shirts, stuff like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been thinking of doing like the merch thing for a while now. I have a good friend of mine who's into doing like he does like sticker like fly posting and stuff, and he has a lot of connections to make patches and merch and stuff, and he actually designed the GAFR logo based on a sketch I gave him. So I'm thinking of definitely getting some like patches made and shirts maybe. As for physical releases, I'm actually in talks at the moment with this underground English label to make a run of 50 cassettes of the trilogy when it's finished. So if that goes through, then that'll be the first physical release for sure. And that should happen. If it does happen, it'll happen as soon as the trilogy is done. So, and then if that's successful, then hopefully more formats as well, like CDs and maybe vinyls. So, but yeah, that's at least on the cards.
Okay. Um, and then, so one thing I had is, since you're a one-man band, you can't really do live performances, but I was thinking maybe, would you ever do live performances, say if you found the right people like that you felt comfortable with doing it, would you ever consider doing live performances?
Yeah, sure. It's definitely something I'm not like desperate to do, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't say no to it. Like you say, it's a matter of just finding the right people to do it. And obviously with things as they are right now, it's just impossible to get together and do it. But yeah, I definitely not say no to it, especially if I get an album out and I feel like there's more of a like a bigger sound and it's something that would sound great on a stage. I'd love to get that done, yeah. But like I say, it's just a matter of finding the people to do it. And I think I'd just relegate myself to just playing guitar if we did that, and I'd get someone else to do vocals maybe because I'm definitely better off on stage just being a guitarist in the past in the bands that I've been in. So I'd have to find vocalist, drummer, bassist, but hopefully it'd be nice to do. Definitely wouldn't say no.
And then final closing question. So if you had one message for your fans, what would it be? What would you like want to say to your fans just as a closing remark?
I would say, with reference to my older EP, you should never, especially in the modern world that we live in, never feel lost and alone, because you're not just a twig on the ground or a leaf blowing in the wind. You're the latest branch on an ancient tree that's roots go deep. Got the name there. And you're the latest incarnation of yourself. All your ancestors are in you, wherever you're from in the world, whoever you are. You've got culture and mythologies and stories and all sorts to discover about your sort of heritage, and you can sort of find meaning and strength through that. And I found that recently. So I'd say, yeah, never feel like you just got to give up.
It's well said. So thank you for your time, and thank you so
No
much for
problem.
coming on and doing this for me. It means the world to me, and can't wait to hear some of your
Thank you.
music in the future. If you end up releasing those cassettes, I'll make sure to pick one up, and I'll make sure to put all your links in
Cheers,
the
man.
I'll make sure to put all those links in the description for your Bandcamp, your Instagram, all that stuff, and promote it. And
Thank you.
that should be it.
Cool. Thanks, man.